Hello everyone, welcome to CodeWithSrini. In this tutorial, we're going to look into how to implement AgGrid for your gridding solutions for your components or for your projects. So in this tutorial, we'll be looking into implementing the AgGrid, installing AgGrid into your application, and as well as implementing the pagination. Not just the normal UI pagination, it'll be more of a server-side pagination. But in this case, for the server, we're not going to have a node implementation or Firebase implementation. It'll be just an HTTP interceptor to demonstrate that a server call is made when you do a pagination. Okay, so consider this as a POC. Now, for a starter, I just cloned the repository in the GitHub, which I have, which is called as a Angular real world application, and it is cloned successfully, and after the npm install, my code base is ready. So if you just scroll through the document, and in the introduction section, we have Angular getting started. So we're going to go through how to set up a AgGrid for our project, so which is quite simple. So after our project is set up, and we can go ahead and install our AgGrid community. So in our command prompt, we're going to just give it a go. Alright, so once that's done, now we will be using our editor Visual Studio Code to add the AgGrid into our module. So that will be, obviously we need to import them into our module, which is AgGrid module dot with component, right? So looks like Visual Studio Code is not picking up, so it will be import and AgGrid into our import statement from AgGrid Angular. So that'll do just fine. And let's see if that implementation is set anywhere. Yeah, it's there. And we forgot the square brackets. Okay, now we're gonna just drop this into our styles. So that could be not this one, it'll be in a common style SCSS file that goes over there. So now that's done. And then finally, this is more about styling things, and this is more about implementation. Now what we're gonna do is, since we got a fake backend, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to just create a fake backend for our application. So in the HTTP interceptor, we're just going to go ahead and create a new file called fake backend.interceptors.ts. So that'll do. Now what we do is we'll just copy paste everything over here, so that'll be easier. I'm going to do a bit of speed coding over here. Alright, so we're gonna make some modifications to our fake backend. Alright, after the speed coding, we have a basic backbone of what we are going to return. So if the request is not of users, then a normal HTTP call will resume. But if it hits the users, then everything else that regards to users that we're going to load in a grid. So let's go ahead and look at the mock we have. So this is the mock data that we're going to load. It's close to 500 records that we have, which has an ID, first name, last name, email, and gender, as well as some company name. So we're gonna load this into our grid. We will be using sorting for ID. pretty much everything on every column fields, and then we're going to have filters for first name and last name, and just to see how we're going to capture in our fake backend. So before that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this entire record. I'm going to paste it over here. So it'll be constant users. We have the users list, and users length is sent. So this is pretty much it for fake backend. Now let's close this up, this one as well. What we're going to do is let's fire up our application to see if things are working. In the meantime, let's go to the app component. We don't need any of these things because we're not going to load it in a particular module. This will be a quick demo, so let's do this in the app component for now. All we need is an AgGrid Angular template variable of my grid. Style, I don't know, like we can have just the height, I guess. So height of 500 pixel for now. And the class, as seen in this documentation, somewhere in the documentation we got theme balham, so we're going to use that class. So ag theme balham. Okay, so this is the styling part of it, including the template variable. Now we'll just leave one space and define the input properties, which is a row data. That will be our row data will be in a field in a class, column definitions, also a field in a class. Pretty much everything what I'm going to do will be a field in a class for Angular Grid. Grid options, pagination. Shall we do pagination straight away? Maybe. No. We don't need a field in a class. This is just true. And cache overflow size, max concurrent data source requests. So this will be like maximum 2 concurrent requests that we're gonna make. So let's just load this as well. Okay, so this is part of the initial properties that we're gonna set for the Angular Grid, and the next bit is the event binding. So when the grid is ready, we'll be shooting out to OnGridReady method with an event. Another one is pagination change. I'm not sure whether we need this one, but let it be. Pagination changed with an event. Okay, so this is pretty much it for the template part of the grid. Now let's go to the TypeScript and do the rest of the bits. Now the first thing is I'm gonna just get rid of unnecessary things that I have defined it earlier. ng on init, we don't need this. We don't need the fetch. I'm gonna get rid of everything. It'll be a clean slate. Auth service now, let it be there. So first thing first is vchild, it's added, and vchild will be fetching the mygrid of mygrid, which is going to be AgGrid Angular, right? And it'll be a list of private grid options. I'm going to do some speed coding over here. We need to define column. So private column definitions of nothing. We're going to define it over here. This dot column definitions equals, it'll be inside an array of objects. So it'll take up header name, user ID, and the field is ID. The field is this one in the response, or the response that you're going to get. Field of ID, you're going to say whether it's sortable, which is true. There you go. Apart from sortable, we can also have filter. There are various filter properties that you can make use. You can just refer the documentation, and you also have date filters as such. Okay, so once the column definitions are done, let's work on the grid options in the constructor. Okay, we have cache overflow size, so we're gonna define that. So cache overflow size is gonna be 2, and max concurrent request. So max concurrent data request gonna be 2. Define them over here. And infinite initial row count, that'll be 2. Max blocks in cache, I'm not sure whether we need that. Not defined, so don't care. This is pretty much it. Now let's do rest of the options, gridding options inside the grid options param. Okay, grid options over there, it takes up an object, so we're gonna go for the header height of let's say 45, and row height of somewhere around 30-ish. Cache block size. Now listen, you need to focus more on this, because this is where the pagination param accepts. So 90 rows in a grid view that you can currently see, and then pagination page size, that's the maximum page size it can handle. So cache block size and pagination size, these both are the most important properties for doing a pagination. And finally, row model type. So this is another important property. So here the default is usually normal, but we need infinite, right? So we got the constructors done. Now once the template is loaded, it will look for the OnGridReady method. So we need to define that OnGridReady with a params. So that's the event. Let's do a console here, says OnGridReady, and here this is where we're going to attach our grid API, so that we will be making use of that. So this dot grid API equals params.api, and this dot grid column API, all the column related APIs will be in this one, grid column API, right? And finally the data source. Okay, so the data source, usually it's defined as the I data source or I server side data source as an interface. So we're going to, so that interface contains get rows. So let me just say I data source. Okay, now in this one, if you go to the definitions, you will have get rows, and in get row params you have start row, end row, and a success callback, failed callback, models for sort models, filter model, and context. Okay, so we will need 1, 2, 3, 4 properties like start row, end row, sort model, and filter model. Okay, so when your columns are sorted, it will be in an array, and when your filter model, your columns are filtered, it will be inside this filter model, and obviously your starting row and your ending row. Rest of the pagination logic is handled by grid itself, so you don't need to bother too much about calculating your logic on based on the total records. Okay, so this is just to show you what iDataSource is all about. So data source and get rows is the method used inside the iDataSource. So this is primarily the most important aspect of server pagination. So the params will be of type iGetRows params. Okay, and that extends to a method. So here we're going to call a service that fetches list of users. Right, to do that, first we need to make use of the test service. So the test service resides inside our core, and the test service over here, get users params, we're just going to return this .http.post. Okay, so that'll be http://users, and the params should be just the params. Okay, so if you notice here, this is the one that we are matching up, http users and params. Okay, but here for the demo purpose, we are going to hijack this this piece of URL and just simulate what the backend is going to do. To make sure that the call is received on the backend, we can do a console fake backend intercepted. Okay, so we will know that the call is made, and so once that's done, we can very well do a get users and params. The params that we have seen, right, it's basically this set of information, these set of properties will be in the params. So this will pass through our service, and then that in turn goes, I can catch everything over here. So that's the general idea of creating a pagination and implementing a fake backend. Okay, so we're going to call a service, and then we are going to subscribe to that service. So only then a call will be made. Subscribe will be of a data. So if it is a success callback, we'll have a params.success callback, and success callback will take up rows of this block and last row. So which means we're gonna just throw up users, and we're gonna also throw up total records. Once that's done, there is a last piece in this puzzle, which is we need to attach this data source. We need to set this data source. So grid API dot and the data source. So pretty much it. Now let's go ahead and we forgot one more aspect, which is the onPagination change. Let that be a dummy method for now. Okay, looks like we have an error. Looks like, yes, we are throwing up errors. Nothing will work in a first shot. So okay, so everything looks fine. All the params looking good. It's basically template parse error, so it should be somewhere around here. Angular grid and it's imported over here. Okay, so I think looks like little typo over there, and that's what making it not to work. Okay, so let's just give it a try. And in here it's a column definitions. Yeah, there you go. So we got our users data, and you can to pagination. Basically, whenever you click on the next and previous, it goes to the, it's cached, good. It goes to the backend. It goes to the fake backend that we have implemented. It doesn't matter. Anyway, it makes a service call, and in real world, it'll be hitting your backend and then do some SQL processing over there, and then throws back your response as it is, just what you have seen here. Some sort of manipulation done in the data, and then the response will be sent like this. Okay, so far so good. Now the pagination with server-side implementation is done, and next thing is, what happens if you're going to do sorting? Okay, looks like the grid sorts, and again the network call, I mean the fake backend is made, but nothing is happening. Anyways, we'll fix that. For that, we need to understand things like, we are sending a params over there, right? The params consist of start row, end row, and also a couple of things like, let's do a console log so that we will be understanding it better. This is the params that we are sending it to the server, which is the backend, and it consists of sort model array and filter model objects. Okay, two things are there. Sort model is basically when you do a sort. So when you inspect after the sorting, you will see the sort model is populated, and it has a column ID and sort as ascending or descending based on the sorting that you have done. And for the filter, let's go ahead and do some filtering. So we just give it as A. What happens here is the filter model is also populated with the first name and the filter type. The first name column is filtered. That's what it says. When you go ahead and do a filter for last name, let's see if there is anything coming up. The filter model for the last name also shows up. So to filter model has been applied, and with a sort model of ascending. Now we can take all the trouble of doing this in the Angular side, in the fake backend, manipulate this array and throw that up to the grid. Since these things can be done easily in the backend using a DB, but here we just don't want to do all the trouble. We just want to do a sorting mechanism for now and demonstrate that the server side pagination works and call it a day. Okay, let's do some sorting. Sorted, give it a sorted users equals users as a first thing. Now in the response body, we will have sorted users, and not sure whether we will be having the users length. I think that's the sorted users length should be there. Yes, I'm not sure. Let's leave it like that. So sorted users will be our first, the one that we're going to work on, and where sort model equals null for now, and sort column ID, which will be empty, and sort, which will be ascending or descending, and filter model. I'm just gonna try whether if it works. Okay, so if it takes too much time, I'm just gonna leave it and call it day. Sort model equals request body dot sort model. Filter model equals rec body dot filter model. Okay, so let's check the sort model. So dot length to see if there is anything up in the sorting. If user has sorted any anything in the columns, then yeah, it will be there. So it goes into this condition block. Implement fake sorting. Well, it's not fake, but it's a fake backend, but it does the actual sorting kind of. So sort model dot for each, we're gonna iterate through all the array elements, but in reality it'll be just this. Okay, so you can sort only one column at a time, but there is a mechanism that you can do multiple column sorting. There is something called multiple key in the AgGrid. You can refer the documentation for further information on multiple sorting. Okay, no. So the sort call ID, we need the sort column ID, which is element.call ID, I guess. So if you look at here, this is the column ID, so it'll be element.column ID, and we also need what sort of a sort it is. Is it an ascending order or a descending order? So sort equals element dot sort. Now we have all the data that we need for a sorting mechanism, what column it's sorted and what sort of a ordering, that is it ASC or DESC. And once that's done, we need to write furthermore for this. Oh, okay. See, we can just do a rough array manipulation, but I'm literally a lazy person. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to install npm install underscore. That's the easiest thing I can do for now, because so the underscore is done. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just import that first. Import everything as underscore from underscore. Easy as that. And we're going to make use of underscore here. So if sort is an ascending order, sorted users equals underscore dot sort by. There are like plenty of methods in the underscore library you can make use of for doing all the array manipulation, which is very, very handy. Now users and sort call ID. That's done. Okay, so this is for the ascending order, and what's there for descending order? Sorted user, sort by. I mean, they're pretty much the same thing. I'm just going to copy that, and there is something called reverse. Okay, so this is pretty much done. Now let's go ahead and check it out. If you go to user ID and do a sorting, there you are. There is a little bit bug. We can debug that. It's done. Sorting is based on the columns that you're doing. Okay, so this is pretty much it. Now shall we do the filter column? I think the filtering mechanism for the columns, we can do it as a separate video, but for now this video is all about implementing server-side paging for the AgGrid, which has been proven to be quite a challenge for many. So I thought even for me, implementing a server-side paging, and it just serves as a tutorial for myself, and it'll be quite useful for others who are struggling to get the AgGrid up and running, although it is the most easiest framework for gridding, easiest components for gridding solutions. So thank you for watching. Please share this video to your friends, and please do subscribe to my video. More the subscription and more the likes, it will be motivation for me to make more such videos. And if you have any more suggestions or any other things that you want to learn, I can do a video for that. Thank you again. Bye bye.